Hi, hello guys, how are you all? ஒன்றும் இல்லை, ஒரு எதிர்பாராத ஒரு ரெக்யூர்மெண்ட் ஒரு தேவை, அதனால் போய் பார்க்க வேண்டியதாகிடுச்சு. அதனால் அப்ரப்டாக பிரேக்கில் இருந்த ஒரு ஸ்ட்ரீம் வந்து அதனால் ஒரு எதிர்பாராத விதமாக ஸ்ட்ரீம் அப்ரப்டாக கட் பண்ணிவிட்டு உடனே போக வேண்டியதாகிடுச்சு. ஸோ நாம் விட்டதுலேருந்து தொடர்த்துவோம். Let's get back to the Trump news. Let's go to the show. தலைவனோட லாரன்ஸ் உடனோட ஃபேஸை பார்த்தாலேங்க இட் ஜஸ்ட் மேக்ஸ் அவர் டே. இல்லை, தலைவன் வச்சு செய்யல.
Well, Elon Musk experienced the seventh worst day of his life today, with the stock market crashing on fears of a Donald Trump-caused recession, which Wall Street is calling the Trump session. Getting a recession named after you as president is not easy. It usually is not so clear, not an absolute straight line of causation from presidential policies to a recession. And so no one called any of the recessions of our lifetimes a president recession, a Bush recession, or a Reagan recession, or, none of that. They didn't try to do that with the name of any other president during our lifetimes. Of course, there were no recessions under the last three Democratic presidents, President Biden, President Obama, President Clinton. Donald Trump has failed miserably in his attempt to blame what even he suggests may be a looming recession on President Biden, who handed Donald Trump the highest performing American economy in history and the highest performing stock market in history. And during the Trump presidency, just these last few weeks, consumer prices have gone up and stock prices have gone down, way down. CNBC reports on Friday, Tesla wrapped up a seventh straight week of losses, its longest losing streak since debuting on the NASDAQ in 2010. The stock has fallen every week since CEO Elon Musk went to Washington, D.C. to take on a major role in the second Trump White House, since peaking at $479.86 on December 17th. Tesla shares have lost more than 50% of their value, wiping out upward of $800 billion in market cap. Monday marked the stock's seventh worst day on record. Elon Musk has publicly confessed to using ketamine to get through emotionally difficult times. Donald Trump made the mistake in an interview this weekend that no other president has made. He essentially predicted a recession is coming.
Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big.
I got to tell you, that's the first time I've actually seen the video. The way I do this is I read the Trump transcripts. I don't look at the video. It's even stupider when you see the video. Transition almost sounds like recession, but that's what he meant when he said transition. When a president is asked if he's expecting a recession, the correct answer is no. It's always been no. Every president has known that prior to Donald Trump. There was plenty of talk of a possible recession during President Biden's term, with some economists actually predicting a recession because of President Biden's policies. Not only were those economists, and they were reasonable economists, but not only were those economists' predictions very wrong, but Joe Biden always said they were wrong. Joe Biden always said there would not be a recession on his watch. Joe Biden always promised no recession. Donald Trump had a chance to fix his failed answer to the "are you expecting a recession" question. And of course, it just got worse.
Maria Bartiromo asked you and you kind of hesitated.
I'll tell you what, of course you hesitate. Who knows?
Who knows? The guy who claimed to be a business genius, and that's why you should elect him president, that guy answers the most important question you can ask him about the economy. He answers it with a "who knows?" And as soon as the stock market opens up after Donald Trump says that, the stock market panics. And if you ask anyone on Wall Street, as the financial networks have been doing in their live coverage of the Trump stock market collapse, why is the stock market collapsing? No one says, "who knows?" No one on CNBC today all day, no one said, "who knows?" They all say it's the Trump tariffs, which they all believe could lead to now the Trump session. And the Wall Street Journal has even predicted that the Trump tariffs could lead to a Great Depression. If Donald Trump announced right now that he is not going to impose any of those tariffs that he has promised to impose, and he will simply stop talking about tariffs, the stock market would, which they all believe, could lead to now the Trump session. And the Wall Street Journal has even predicted that the Trump tariffs could lead to a Great Depression. If Donald Trump announced right now that he is not going to impose any of those tariffs that he has promised to impose, and he will simply stop talking about tariffs, the stock market would rally tomorrow and go through the roof. But Donald Trump is now trying to pretend he doesn't pay any attention to the stock market.
So I won the election. The markets went up thousands of points. You have no choice but to vote for me because your 401ks down the tubes. You want to see a market crash? If we lost this election, I think the market would go down the tubes.
I think the stock market's going to be great.
So that guy, yeah, he never thinks about the stock market. The truth is, Donald Trump doesn't understand the stock market, which is why he never got any richer in the stock market. Donald Trump didn't invest in Microsoft in the early years. He had plenty of money to do it, but he didn't. He didn't invest in anything in the early years and ride any stock up. He didn't invest in Tesla, for that matter, or anything else, because he doesn't understand anything about investing.
Holy God.
Or the stock market, apparently. Elon Musk's position as the richest person in the world is based on the value of Tesla stock. The sinking Tesla stock price is not Tesla's only problem. Sales of Tesla in Europe have collapsed. Tesla car sales in Germany fell by 76%, down 24% in the Netherlands, 42% in Sweden, 48% in Norway and Denmark, 45% in France, 55% in Italy, 10% in Spain, 53% in Portugal. In the United States, Tesla sales fell by 6%, with Cybertruck's sales down 32%. And on Saturday, a Tesla showroom in Manhattan was shut down after more than 350 protesters gathered outside. Democratic State Senator Brad Hoylem-Siegel, who represents the district, told the New York Times that protesters have gathered at that location for weeks, with each weekend's protests drawing a larger crowd than the previous weekends. He told the Times that it is, quote, cathartic for New Yorkers to go to the streets, and that it was important for Mr. Musk and Mr. Trump to see that cutting the federal government off at its knees is going to hurt a lot of people. The Washington Post reports, quote, since President Donald Trump's inauguration, more than a dozen violent or destructive acts have been directed at Tesla facilities, according to court documents, surveillance photographs, police records, and local media reports reviewed by the Washington Post. In March, several Tesla superchargers at a shopping center in Littleton, Massachusetts, were set ablaze. Vandals in Maryland also spray painted "No Musk" onto a Tesla building alongside a swastika-like symbol. In February, a man brandishing an AR-style semi-automatic weapon fired at a Tesla storefront in Salem, Oregon. Just a few weeks earlier, investigators say the same man attacked the same dealership by throwing Molotov cocktails at Tesla vehicles and through the store window. He caused an estimated $500,000 in damage, according to court documents. Cryptocurrencies had a very bad day on Wall Street today. If the United States of America were a big investor in crypto, like Donald Trump wants us to be, the United States would have lost a lot of money today. But luckily, Social Security trust funds are not crypto. So the Social Security trust funds did not lose a dime today. On Friday, Donald Trump announced nothing that kind of seemed like something.
I signed an executive order officially creating our strategic Bitcoin reserve, and this will be a virtual Fort Knox for digital gold to be housed within the United States Treasury. That's a big thing.
Nah, it's not a big thing. It's kind of a fake thing, because the first question you would have is, how is the United States of America going to buy cryptocurrencies? That would be the same thing as the United States buying Tesla stock or any other stock, which the United States of America cannot legally do. Here's what Donald Trump actually said they are going to do.
The Treasury and Commerce Departments will also explore new pathways to accumulate additional Bitcoin holdings for the reserve, provided it's done at no cost to the taxpayers.
Oh, okay. So that means the Treasury will not buy any cryptocurrencies at all. That's like me saying I'm going to explore new pathways to buy the Boston Celtics. They're for sale, just like cryptocurrencies are for sale. But no matter how many pathways I explore to buy the Boston Celtics, I won't be able to do it. Donald Trump did say one true thing about the United States government and cryptocurrencies. He said the federal government already owns Bitcoin, some Bitcoin. And that's true. And every bit of cryptocurrency in the possession of the federal government, every bit of it, was seized as part of a criminal prosecution of drug dealers and other criminals who own and trade in cryptocurrency. The federal government also owns yachts and fancy cars and a lot of other stuff seized in criminal prosecutions of drug dealers. That is the only legal way the federal government can obtain cryptocurrencies. It is not legal for the federal government to buy cryptocurrencies. And so the Trump team will be exploring those pathways and probably never find a legal pathway to obtain crypto other than arresting a lot more drug dealers. According to an affidavit written under oath by Tiffany Flick, who worked at the Social Security Administration for 30 years, most recently as the acting chief of staff to the acting commissioner of Social Security, thanks to Elon Musk, Donald Trump could become the first president in history who fails to deliver Social Security benefits, as every president since Franklin Delano Roosevelt has managed to do every day that Social Security has been in operation for the last 85 years. Social Security checks have never been a day late or a dollar short, but now we have no idea what is happening inside the Social Security Administration. The 12-page affidavit goes into great detail. This is an under oath statement, great detail about what has happened at the Social Security Administration in the recent days, leading to the conclusion, I am not confident that Department of Government Efficiency associates have the requisite knowledge and training to prevent sensitive information from being inadvertently transferred to bad actors. That is your birth date, your Social Security number, and all the information necessary to steal your identity, possibly being, quote, inadvertently transferred to bad actors. Elon Musk's team is now running Social Security, including an acting commissioner, Leland Dudek, who was installed by Donald Trump. The affidavit says Elon Musk's team, none of whom know anything about Social Security and its operations, have access now to everything that Social Security does, everything it has, including the invaluable and previously totally secure enterprise data warehouse, as well as the master beneficiary record. The affidavit says full access to other Social Security Administration data systems might also include write access, which would allow for the changing of data in the system. So Elon Musk's tech team could change the amount of Social Security you might receive next month, including changing it down to zero or from the system. We don't know because we have no idea what Elon Musk is doing inside Social Security. The affidavit says we can no longer be sure, quote, that Social Security Administration programs will continue to function operate without disruption. That would be the first disruption in the history of Social Security, the oldest, the biggest, the most successful government program in American history. The affidavit says the disruptions Elon Musk could create, quote, could result in benefits payments not being paid out, or delays in payments. I understand that Department of Government Efficiency associates have been seeking access to the source code to Social Security Administration systems. If granted, I am not confident that such associates have the requisite understanding of Social Security Administration to avoid critical errors that could upend Social Security Administration systems. No one has ever been worried about that before in the 85-year history of Social Security. In a weird Elon Musk interview today on Fox, he said something not completely coherent about Social Security and 8-year-olds. Now, what you can be absolutely sure of is that Elon Musk had no idea that Social Security actually does, before he took over Social Security anyway, pay 8-year-olds. He surely had no idea that there are thousands of 8-year-olds and 6-year-olds and infant babies receiving Social Security. Because when a parent of children under the age of 18 dies, that child receives survivor benefits from that parent's Social Security account. So yes, there are Social Security checks going out to the oldest people in America and to the youngest people in America. And every child receiving survivor benefits from Social Security wishes they weren't. Will Elon Musk cut them off next month? We have no idea, but we do know he was very eager to stop food shipments from the United States Agency for International Development that were on their way last month to feed starving children in the famine in Sudan. Elon Musk loved doing that. He loved snatching that food away from those children. So no one should be shocked if he does have one of his techies flip a switch and Social Security stops sending all survivor benefits to every child who sadly receives those benefits in the United States. Donald Trump said two things in the same answer that sent the stock market crashing today. One was that ridiculous who knows to the question of, is there going to be a recession? But what he said immediately after that is the reason that everyone on Wall Street cites for the Trump stock market crash.
Maria Bartiromo asked you, and you kind of hesitated.
I'll tell you what, of course you hesitate. Who knows? All I know is this: we're going to take in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, and we're going to become so rich, you're not going to know where to spend all that money.
We're going to take in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. We are going to take in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. Okay, who are we going to take it from? We are going to take it from ourselves. Every American consumer will pay the Trump tariffs, and everyone on Wall Street knows that, and that is why the stock market is crashing. No one is going to get richer because of the Trump tariffs. Everyone is going to have less disposable income because we will all be paying the Trump tariffs. Donald Trump is gleefully talking about taking hundreds of billions of dollars from you, from his voters, from everyone in the United States, and only from people in the United States because the Trump tariffs cannot be paid by anyone else. Last week, Donald Trump announced a delay in his illegal tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports to this country, but Canada has decided to play tougher than Donald Trump and is going ahead with its retaliatory tariffs against Donald Trump, and the people of Minnesota know it.
Wow. ட்ரம்ப் டிஸ்ரப்டிவ் டிஸ்ட்ரக்டிவ். தலைவன் டைட்டில் எங்கிருந்து பிடிக்கிறானுங்க தெரிய மாட்டேங்குது.
Well, today, Donald Trump backed down. Big surprise. Donald Trump backed down. Again. So, not so big a surprise. Donald Trump backed down again. Well, today, Donald Trump backed down. Big surprise. Donald Trump backed down. Again. So, not so big a surprise. Donald Trump backed down again, and once again proved himself the weakest, most irrational negotiating president in history today when he backed down after one of his out-of-control threats to impose 50% tariffs, double them, 50% tariffs on Canada. Starting tomorrow morning, the stock market was already crashing downward, sunk further after Donald Trump's unhinged threat of 50% tariffs against Canada. And then the stock market got some good news. Ukraine agreed to the terms of a possible ceasefire, which we'll discuss later in this hour. And Ontario's Premier, Doug Ford, decided to suspend the 25% tariff he imposed on electricity that Ontario sells to the northern border states of Minnesota, Michigan, and New York, saying the temperature needs to come down. And then Donald Trump's temperature came down a little bit. He dropped his threat of 50% tariffs starting tomorrow morning, and the stock market stabilized for the rest of the day with a huge loss, but it didn't keep sinking. It stabilized at a loss of 478 points. It was on its way to a much, much bigger loss. These are, as I was just saying, fantastically exciting days to be watching CNBC's daily coverage of the stock market, which normally puts reasonable people to sleep. Because normally CNBC is reporting on the most stable economy in the world and the strongest stock market in the world. And for certainly all of the Biden years, the stock market was doing very well, setting new record highs all the time. And the economists and stock analysts who appeared on CNBC and the CEOs were all sharing variations on how to get richer that day in the Biden stock market. But now, some of the CNBC regulars, who, like good airline pilots, never want to sound panicked, sound as close to panicked as they can get.
If those two good developments perhaps stand down on the Canadian tariffs and hopefully a ceasefire in Ukraine, if they hadn't come up, I think we would have had another 1,000-point drop day today. I mean, it's clearly this destructive, if I should say so, up and down trade policy that has really worried the market and sowed uncertainty among consumers and businesses.
Disruptive and destructive. That is the distinguished Professor Jeremy Siegel, who teaches economics at Donald Trump's alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania, Wharton School. Here is what the worst economics student ever to attend Wharton said about that today.
Mr. President, you mentioned the ups and downs in the stock market. You said it'll go up, it'll go down. But do you and your tariff policies right now bear any responsibility for the turmoil we're seeing this week?
Biden gave us a horrible economy. He gave us horrible inflation. And I think the market was going to go very, very bad.
Biden gave him the strongest economy any president has ever handed off to another president. He gave him.
எனக்கு இப்போலாம் வர வர ட்ரம்ப் பேசுறத பார்க்குறப்ப ஸ்கூலில் இருக்க ஒரு புள்ளி ஆன்சர்ஸ் பண்ணுற மாதிரியே இருக்கு. இவன் வேற ஒருத்த புளுத்தி குழந்த மாதிரி ஏதாவது இரிட்டேட் போயிட்டு இருக்கு அந்த மாதிரியே இருக்கு.
Biden gave him the strongest economy any president has ever handed off to another president. He gave him the highest stock market any president has ever handed off to another president. And so that answer would get Donald Trump an F in Professor Siegel's class today. And what Donald Trump wrote at 10:15 a.m. today would get him kicked out of the Wharton School. That is when he publicly posted on social media his threat of 50% tariffs. When the stock market was already headed down, Donald Trump's crazy statement about 50% tariffs made it so much worse. But the thing that would have gotten him kicked out of the Wharton School was not what he said about tariffs in that post. It's what he said about making Canada the 51st state. If Donald Trump had said that in a college class, they probably would have sent him straight to the infirmary to see if anything medical or neurological was causing the very early onset dementia that he would have been exhibiting in that classroom. Here's what he said that is very important to American workers about making Canada the 51st state. And let me first stipulate this. It's never going to happen. I don't even like to talk about it. I normally don't discuss the Canada 51st state thing in any detail because it's so ridiculous. But what's important about his statement about it today, it shows the profound depth of stupidity in what Donald Trump is saying about making Canada the 51st state. If he just said, make Canada the 51st state and left it at that, that would be one level of stupidity. But he keeps going. He said this would make all tariffs and everything else totally disappear. There would no longer be a northern border problem. Now, auto workers in Michigan and Ohio and factory workers everywhere in the country who Donald Trump pretends he's trying to protect should think about what that stupid thing Donald Trump actually said that will never happen would actually mean to them. It would mean that all the American cars being made in Canada right now that Donald Trump doesn't want to be made in Canada would still be made in Canada. Every factory in Canada would still operate and there would be zero tariffs on anything coming into the rest of the states from our 51st state, which means that every manufacturing job in Canada now would stay in Canada. And your manufacturing job in Michigan might just move over to that new state of Canada because it's the same country. And how would factory workers in the 48 states below Canada feel about the newest state taking their jobs? That utterly demented statement by Donald Trump about making Canada the 51st state completely contradicts his stated desire to move Canadian auto manufacturing jobs across the border into the United States. And now I apologize for even entertaining Donald Trump's demand to that extent, but it is worth pointing out that within the stupidest thing he says in his social media post, there's actually an even deeper level of stupidity that is ignored by every single reporter who quotes Donald Trump saying that he once again wants to make Canada the 51st state. If Joe Biden had ever said anything like what Donald Trump said about Canada today, everyone else in the news media would have said what I'm saying about Donald Trump right now. Donald Trump's mind doesn't work. Donald Trump is mentally incapable of doing the job he was elected to do. It's not even close. It's not like, well, Donald Trump is almost smart enough for this job. No, Donald Trump's mind does not work. It is broken. It cannot be fixed. Donald Trump does not understand the English language. Some of the simplest words in the English language are beyond him. A word like, say, illegal. Donald Trump really doesn't know what it means. He doesn't, which is why he was convicted of 34 felonies in Manhattan. I believe Donald Trump didn't realize that the way he was paying off Stormy Daniels was illegal, but ignorance of the law is no defense in a courtroom. And Donald Trump's illegal imposition of tariffs is something that doesn't bother him in the least. But whenever Donald Trump does use the word illegal, he is always wrong. Like today, when he said it is illegal for people to not buy Teslas. He said that, and he's still president. He said it is illegal. 15 minutes after midnight last night, the president, who doesn't understand the English language and doesn't understand law, said that it's illegal not to buy Teslas. He said it's illegal to boycott Tesla. Boycott means don't buy one. Again, if any other president had ever said it's illegal not to buy a car, a particular car, they would have rushed that president into a neurological exam immediately. In the middle of the night, when he should have been sleeping and resting that 78-year-old brain of his so it could desperately try to function the next day, Donald Trump wrote, "The radical left lunatics, as they often do, are trying to illegally and collusively boycott Tesla, one of the world's greatest automakers, and Elon's baby, in order to attack and do harm to Elon and everything he stands for." Well, he's right about the motivation. The people who are protesting at Tesla dealerships, including in Donald Trump's hometown of New York City, are hoping to discourage Tesla sales because they are hoping that the richest person in the world can be driven ultimately to the bankruptcy that he is falsely predicting the United States government. Once again, Elon Musk said the United States government would go bankrupt. He said that today. It's impossible. The United States government cannot go bankrupt and never will. But Elon Musk could theoretically go bankrupt if sales of Teslas stopped, if they just stopped in the United States. And as we reported earlier this week, sales of Teslas have dropped dramatically worldwide. In Europe, they've dropped dramatically. In the United States, they've dropped dramatically. And so Donald Trump, in his desperation to keep his biggest campaign contributor in history, the biggest campaign contributor in the history of American politics, to keep Elon Musk the richest person in the world, especially after Elon Musk is now, according to the New York Times report tonight, promising another $100 million in campaign money for Donald Trump. Donald Trump did something illegal today, and he did it in the White House driveway. Donald Trump used federal property to do a TV commercial. Donald Trump stood with Elon Musk in the White House driveway with some Teslas in front of them, and Donald Trump pretended to buy a Tesla. It has been reported by legitimate news organizations everywhere that Donald Trump bought a Tesla from Elon Musk today, as if that's a fact. There is no evidence of that whatsoever. No bill of sale, no check was passed, nothing was signed. The two most awkward people in America stood there like statues trying to save Elon Musk's wealth with the completely fake stunt of Donald Trump pretending to buy a car from the richest person in the world with no money or paperwork changing hands. And saying, when asked, that he illegally was hoping that this stunt that he was doing on federal property against federal law would push up his friend's stock price.
If you buying a Tesla will boost Tesla sales and boost
Well, I
the
hope
stock?
it does.
He hopes it does. You can search the history books for the moment when any previous president of the United States used the White House to try to publicly push up the stock price of his richest friend's stock. It has never happened. It is illegal to use federal property the way Donald Trump and Elon Musk used federal property today, and neither one of them know it. It was Elon Musk who first said that boycotts are illegal, which is not true. Elon Musk said it was illegal for advertisers to boycott Twitter after he turned Twitter into a cesspool full of Nazis and assorted madmen. Elon Musk is not from around here. Elon Musk does not understand the country where he now lives. Elon Musk would fail by a wide margin a high school AP American history test. He grew up in white South Africa, going to a segregated elementary school and high school where he learned nothing about American history, American law, American free enterprise, where every company gets to decide where, how, and when they will advertise and where they won't, and where no company is allowed to advertise on federal property. A country where advertisers have never wanted to be associated with Nazis. Elon Musk is such a bad salesman that he was stupid enough today to bring even more attention to the latest disturbing challenges the Tesla owners are facing thanks entirely to Elon Musk.
I just want to thank the president for his support. This means a lot. And also thank everyone out there who is supporting Tesla. It's really terrible that there's so much violence being perpetrated against people like Tesla, Tesla supporters, Tesla owners, Tesla stores. These are innocent people who've done nothing wrong.
So yeah, that's true. Those people have done nothing wrong. All the problems they are facing now because of their association with Tesla are Elon Musk's fault, exclusively. Imagine you work at America's oldest car manufacturer, Ford, and you watch the President of the United States doing an illegal commercial today on federal property for the newest car maker in America. Imagine you're a factory worker at America's biggest auto manufacturer, that has the most auto manufacturing jobs in the United States, General Motors. And you have to watch today when the President of the United States does an illegal TV commercial at the White House for America's newest auto manufacturer because the owner of that company has given the president more money than anyone has ever given a politician in American history. NBC News reports a major automaker said, quote, Tesla has benefited more from taxpayer money than any other car maker by far. Now the White House is marketing Tesla's vehicles. What's next? Donald Trump is a terrible actor. And so there was nothing convincing today in his pretending to buy a Tesla or pretending to even like Teslas.
They cost too much and they don't go far. Electric cars are good if you have a towing company. Other than that, it's terrible. This whole electric car is sick. It's sick. They don't go far. It's good if you want to go to the grocery store, take a quick little drive. You know, they say the best thing about an electric car, the first 10 minutes, you feel great. The next 45 minutes, you're worried about where the hell am I going to get a recharge. So it's a problem. But they don't go far, and they're very expensive. And the other thing is you'll never make them in this country because everything you need for an electric car is in China. We have the stuff that you need for our cars. It's called gasoline and oil. It's right underground.
That's the real Donald Trump. Before Elon Musk bought the presidency for him. Donald Trump all but admitted today that he doesn't know how to drive or doesn't remember how to drive a car because it has been decades and decades since he's actually driven a car, long before he became president.
You don't want me to drive it, do you?
Let's take a look at
Mr. President, you going to get wrapped in gold?
Think Biden could get into that car?
Yeah, I think Biden could get into that car.
Here comes the president now. She looks great. We don't get to do this very often.
Yeah.
Feel like going for a ride?
I'd love to.
Why don't you drive? Hop in.
Right. Thank you, pal.
The nice thing about this is you can outrun the Secret Service. This is the only time you get to drive.
Yeah, it is. It's a God's truth.
I know, it's
And I miss it.
Instead of trying to save Elon Musk's struggling car company in the White House driveway, Donald Trump should have been listening to Wharton professor Jeremy Siegel on CNBC.
Do you think the people in Florida living off, the accumulated wealth that they've done in the last 10 years are going to be all excited about, some plant that Trump saves in Erie, Pennsylvania for 300 jobs or 500 jobs? By the way, producing something that they could have brought cheaper without the tariffs beforehand. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Don't forget, almost half the American public own stock, if not directly, indirectly, through their 401ks, through their IRAs, through their pension funds. You have 180 million, 150 million people there. So, we're going to bring some manufacturing back to the U.S. How many jobs is that? Less than 1/10%? Yes, I understand what happened to the heartland and the manufacturing there, by the way, which happened everywhere in the world, which also happened to Europe and everywhere else. What we have seen over the last 40 or 50 years, the deindustrialization of the West is really due to the fact that China, India, the rest of the world opened up, industrialized, and could produce goods of equal quality at 30% to 40% less price. So, that's just a fact of world trade. And we economists have talked about the gains from trade. We want to protect the people that are hurt. But this idea about, going through a recession, unemployment 6-7%, and then when are these factories going to be built, and how many are they going to employ? When if we're going to lay off 2 or 3 million, we're not producing anywhere near that amount of manufacturing jobs. The numbers don't add up in that
speaking
story.
of numbers,
And that's why the Wall Street Journal's editorial on Donald Trump's trade war that will appear in tomorrow's print edition of the Wall Street Journal says, we said from the beginning that this North American trade war is the dumbest in history, and we were being kind. History.
We said from the beginning, this North American trade war is the dumbest in history and we were being kind. सही है.
We were being kind.
सही है.
And so America is, at this hour, completing the
இவ்வளோ லோட் ஆகுது ஸ்லோவா.
And so America is, at this hour, completing the 52nd day of having a president of the United States whose brain does not work. Donald Trump's brain is broken, badly damaged, as he exhibits every day. And once again today, Donald Trump, something that would have gotten any other president rushed to the hospital for a neurological examination and an evaluation for dementia, for starters. That's where they would have begun. It was a vile anti-Semitic outburst by the man who once said this after he saw a black accountant working at one of his failed casinos. Quote, "Black guys counting my money. I hate it. The only kind of people I want counting my money are short guys that wear yarmulkes every day. Those are the kind of people I want counting my money. No one else." That is how the anti-Semitic president of the United States sees Jewish men. Little short men who wear yarmulkes every day. That's Donald Trump. Donald Trump spewed this demented poison today. What the poison we will get to. It came out of him in response to this question.
Are you planning to lower corporate taxes to Patrick Island?
Well, we are planning to lower taxes, yeah, if the Democrats behave, but the Democrats have no clue.
Are you planning to lower corporate taxes like Ireland? There's Donald Trump sitting in the Oval Office today with the head of the Irish government, asked a question about corporate taxes in Ireland and the United States, which then got him rambling on for a few completely irrelevant paragraphs that could never be called an answer. And then he ended his response to that question about corporate taxes with this hateful statement about Chuck Schumer.
Schumer is a Palestinian, as far as I'm concerned. You know, he's become a Palestinian. He used to be Jewish. He's not Jewish anymore. He's a Palestinian.
Not a single Republican anywhere in America who claims to be a staunch supporter of Israel and the Jewish people rose up to object to Donald Trump, declaring Chuck Schumer to not be Jewish anymore. So Donald Trump, who has no idea what it is to be Jewish or Palestinian, now decides who is Jewish in this country? Only in his own perverse, deeply perverse brain could he do that. But the disgrace of every elected Republican in Washington is that not one of them dares to complain about that kind of poison coming out of the foul mouth of Donald Trump. And not one of them worries about the mental capacity of the kind of person who can say that, who, by the way, has access to the nuclear codes while he's saying things like that. Donald Trump's mind is gone. It is shattered. You just saw that. There is no recognizable neurological function going on there. Not a single person who ever tries to interpret Donald Trump for you and defensively tries to tell you what Donald Trump meant when he says something insane ever uses the actual words of Donald Trump to explain Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump, who once said, "I have the best words," says things all the time, every day, that make absolutely no sense and frequently are filled with hatred. He's not Jewish anymore. So the United States of America now has a head of state who decides who's Jewish and who isn't. Who else had a head of state who did that? Ever heard of a head of state doing anything like that? You have to be in your 90s to remember the last time the world had a head of state who decided who was Jewish and who was not. That was one of Adolf Hitler's first ideas about how to govern Germany. First of all, decide who's Jewish and who is not. The people who attacked the Capitol on January 6th and made their way to the Senate were heard saying, "Where's the big Jew?" They meant Chuck Schumer, who had just become the first Jewish majority leader of the United States Senate in history the day before the attack. And that was not lost on Trump supporters who attacked the Capitol wearing clothing celebrating the Holocaust. Robert Keith Packer was wearing his Camp Auschwitz hoodie. What would he have done if he had found Chuck Schumer? While Donald Trump supporters were looking for Chuck Schumer, saying, "Where's the big Jew?" Donald Trump was silent for 187 minutes. If Donald Trump was ever going to say Chuck Schumer isn't Jewish, maybe then when his people were walking around the Senate saying, "Where's the big Jew?" Nazis invaded the capital of the United States looking for Chuck Schumer 76 years after Nazis were rounding up and executing members of Chuck Schumer's family in Nazi death camps. And today, the poisonous, broken brain of Donald Trump said he used to be Jewish. He's not Jewish anymore. All of the sane people in the world, all of the sane people in America, all of the sane people in the Republican Party, the sane ones, do not have to work hard to not say things like that. They are not spending their day and their energy fighting the impulse to say Chuck Schumer is not Jewish anymore because they are not insane. On CNBC yesterday, the normally mild-mannered, very pro-business Steve Leisman used a word I've never heard him use before in his analysis of the economy or the stock market or anything else. It was the word insane, and he applied it to Donald Trump.
I'm going to say this at risk of my job, Kelly, but what President Trump is doing is insane. It's absolutely insane. It is about the 8th reason we've had for the tariffs, and now he's saying he's putting 50% tariffs on Canada unless they agree to become the 51st state. That is insane. There is just no other way of describing it.
That's enough for Donald Trump to call Steve Leisman a Palestinian. That's enough for Donald Trump to say he's not Jewish anymore. Steve Leisman is not a short guy with a yarmulke. So maybe Donald Trump thinks Steve Leisman doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to anything financial or economic. It took an insane person to make Steve Leisman use the word insane in describing what Donald Trump is doing to the economy and the stock market with his tariffs. And it took an insane person to say Schumer is a Palestinian as far as I'm concerned. You know, he's become a Palestinian. He used to be Jewish. He's not Jewish anymore. He's a Palestinian. Okay? That's what Donald Trump's last word was. Okay? No, not okay. And it's not okay that we live in a country where that is not a story. It is not okay where the New York Times, which is read by more Jewish people than any other newspaper in the world, doesn't have a story about the president of the United States deciding that the Senate Democratic leader is not Jewish anymore. Once again, imagine what the New York Times would do if Joe Biden had said that. How many inches high would the headline be on page 1 about Joe Biden or any other president saying that? But Donald Trump's most insane statements, including the ones filled with bigotry and hatred, now just slip through the cracks, the very big cracks in the American news media. And most people in Israel and most people in the world, most people in America, most Jewish people will not know that the only president of the United States in history who can legitimately be described as insane has decided and announced that Chuck Schumer is not Jewish anymore. And we're told we have to select our outrage with Donald Trump. I understand that. We can't be outraged at everything we're told. I guess that's true. But the problem with that approach is that too many reporters and too many members of the news media are learning not to be outraged by anything. And that is exactly what happened in the Oval Office today, because when Donald Trump finished saying he's a Palestinian, and then he turned to the reporters saying, okay, meaning I'm ready to take another question, not one of them said a word to him about what he just said about Chuck Schumer. That was one of the most disgraceful public moments in the history of the Oval Office, if not the most disgraceful, possibly outdone only by Donald Trump in other Oval Office moments. And not one White House reporter screamed at Donald Trump about that. Not one of them said a word to Donald Trump, asked a single question to Donald Trump about when he became in charge of deciding who is Jewish. Remember how they used to scream at Joe Biden? Remember that sound? That wasn't there today after Donald Trump said Chuck Schumer's not Jewish anymore. You know what they'll tell you? They'll say, well, he didn't mean it. White House reporters will tell you that. They'll say he didn't mean it. When someone doesn't mean what they're saying, there's supposed to be something in the delivery that makes that apparent, especially if it's a joke, for example. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at Donald Trump saying this one more time. And when you look at this, see if you can find the slightest hint that he doesn't mean every word of this.
Schumer is a Palestinian as far as I'm concerned. He's become a Palestinian. He used to be Jewish. He's not Jewish anymore. He's a Palestinian.
And then he turns and says, okay, to the reporters. I guess it was okay with them. Donald Trump didn't say a single thing today with more seriousness than he said he's not Jewish anymore. And Donald Trump said that sitting beside Ireland's head of state in an annual visit around St. Patrick's Day, which is Monday, to celebrate the Irish contribution to American life. The Irish head of state always comes to the White House around this time of year, around March 17th. Michael Martin is the leader of a country whose people take their Irish identity very seriously. Irish Americans have been known to take their Irish identity sometimes too seriously, like on St. Patrick's Day when they can cause a traffic jam here and there. But saying Chuck Schumer isn't Jewish anymore is the neurological equivalent of saying Michael Martin, the head of the Irish government, sitting beside Donald Trump in the Oval Office, isn't Irish anymore. Go ahead, Donald. Turn to him and say that to him. Turn to him in the Oval Office and say to him, he's not Irish anymore. Because what you don't know, Donald Trump, is that the Irish government has a much more sympathetic posture toward Palestinians than Chuck Schumer ever has. Much more. And you wouldn't dare, Donald Trump, to turn to Michael Martin and say, you're not Irish anymore. You're a Palestinian. Wouldn't dare. Donald Trump has a broken brain that leaks ugly poison every day, and it cannot be fixed. It is getting worse. It is worse on day 52 of his presidency than it was on the first day of his presidency this time, and it will be worse on the 100th day of his presidency, and it will be worse, much, much worse on the 1,000th day of his presidency. And on this, the 52nd day of his presidency today, Donald Trump, the weakling, backed down in a very big way once again. We've seen Donald Trump's childish and now predictably weak backing down on his ridiculous tariff game, his dangerously stupid tariff game that he's playing against Canada and Mexico and the world. But today, Donald Trump backed down on something that's even bigger to him, and it is much more important to his voters than tariffs, which is why Donald Trump is using the tariff game and the madness it has created to distract from his biggest broken promise to his followers and his biggest failure so far. And that is mass deportation. There have been no mass deportations. None. And the breaking news of the night is the New York Times reporting ICE returns all migrants from Guantanamo to stateside facilities. That's right, all of them. And there were very few there. Remember the promises of the 30,000 people who were going to be scooped up in the United States and sent straight to Guantanamo? 30,000. He didn't even send 300, not even 1/10 of 1% of what he said he was going to do. And now he's given up on Guantanamo and doesn't want you to know it. The New York Times reports as of Friday, according to a court filing this week, 290 migrants from 27 countries have since cycled through the base. As of Friday, the court filing said 17 migrants were being held in a medium security facility, a dormitory-style building on the other side of the base from the wartime prison, where 23 were in Camp 6. So that is a grand total of 40 as of last week. 40 people detained by Donald Trump at Guantanamo Bay as of Friday, and now there are none. Zero. The operation has so far cost $16 million, according to representatives of the Guantanamo Migrant Detention Mission, who briefed a congressional delegation during a visit last week. It has a staff of 1,000 security forces and civilian contractors, many of them mobilized from military bases in the United States. In other words, many of them mobilized from military bases in the United States for no reason to go to Guantanamo and do nothing. A complete Trumpian waste of money, while his court jester Elon Musk is trying to pretend that he's the one who's finding the waste in the federal government. Immigration law specialists have questioned the legal basis for the operation, arguing that the act does not authorize the government to transfer people to the soil of another unrelated country without its consent, nor, they said, does it provide authority to detain people outside the territorial United States, which appears to exclude Guantanamo. That is what Donald Trump is trying to hide. That's why he's illegally using federal property to try to sell Elon Musk's cars, which American buyers are turning away from, apparently because they don't want to be accused of driving what could be interpreted as the rolling version of a Nazi salute. Thanks to Elon Musk's disgraceful public antics. That's what that car has become in the minds of some. Antics that the president of General Motors doesn't do. Idiotic antics that the president of Ford doesn't do. Hateful posts on social media that the presidents of other automobile companies don't do. And because the people running General Motors and Ford don't publicly disgrace themselves every day, people can buy electric cars from General Motors and Ford without fear of the very car itself associating the driver with any political position at all. Donald Trump wasn't asked a single question about Guantanamo Bay yesterday when he was trying to sell cars illegally on federal property in the White House driveway. Donald Trump wasn't asked a single question about Guantanamo Bay in the Oval Office today when he decided that Chuck Schumer isn't Jewish anymore. Donald Trump's so-called border czar, Tom Homan, is busy trying to threaten mayors in places like Boston, which has the lowest crime rate of any major city, because Donald Trump knows Tom Homan has failed to round up and deport the millions of people that Donald Trump promised to throw out of this country right away. Under the Donald Trump presidency, inflation went up, the price of eggs went way, way, way up and are still going. The stock market is going way down. And tonight, Guantanamo Bay is empty instead of being a harsh holding pen for the tens of thousands of criminals who Donald Trump has not found after insisting they'd be easy to find and round up and get rid of. And so far, the only people Donald Trump has managed to get rid of are American citizens who work in America for the American government. And that's the way it is as of day 52.
பார்த்து எல்லாம் ரொம்ப சீரியஸாக போச்சு. அதிகமான லெக்ஸ் இதுக்கு தான் இருக்குன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். வீடியோ பண்ணிடலாமா? ஐ திங்க் நம்ம த லாஸ்ட் வேர்டு எல்லாமே கவர் பண்ணிட்டோம்னு நினைக்கிறேன்.
Donald Trump and other MAGA leaders are trying to somehow spin the horrible jobs report out this morning into something it's not. They are in a panic. Let's expose what's really happening. The jobs report Mr. President, you're going to be at the inauguration. Some union leaders and even some kind of rank and Trump and other MAGA leaders are trying to somehow spin the horrible jobs report out this morning into.
இது நிறைய கண்டென்ட் இருக்குது. நான் அதை வந்து இன்னொன்று அது கண்டிப்பாக வந்து எல்லாருக்கும் வச்சு காட்டுறேன். பிகாஸ் இவர் தான் டீட்டெயில்டாக மெக்சிகோவோட பிரசிடெண்ட் என்ன பேசினார் அப்படிங்கிறதையும் இவர் தான் காட்டியிருந்தார். ஸோ இது கண்டிப்பாக இன்னொரு நாள் டேக்கப் பண்ணுறேன். இன்றைக்கி இந்த செஷனில் இப்போதைக்கு நம்ம வைண்ட் அப் பண்ணிப்போம். ஓகே guys, I hope you like this stream. ஆக்சுவலி நான் இன்றைக்கி பேசணும் வந்ததே வந்து நேஷ்னல் பாலிட்டிக்ஸ் பற்றி தான். பட் தெர் இஸ் ஸோ மச் டாபிக்ஸ் டு பி கவர்டு. நிறையா இருக்குது பார்த்து ரியாக்ட் பண்ண வேண்டியதுக்கு, கருத்து சொல்கிறதுக்கு. இப்போ நிறைய கூட இப்போ இந்த வீடியோ இந்த ஸ்ட்ரீம் என்னால் பெருசாக எதுவும் பேச முடியல. ஆனால் போன ஸ்ட்ரீமில் நிறையா கான்டெக்ஸ்ட் என்ன, எதனால் எப்படி பேசுனாங்க அப்படிங்கிறத கொஞ்சம் சொல்ல முடிஞ்சிருந்தது. ஸோ ஹோப்ஃபுல்லி இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் செலக்டிவாக ரீஃபைண்டாக நியூஸ் ரியாக்ட் பண்ணுறேன். ஐ ஹோப் யூ லைக் தி ஸ்ட்ரீம். நியூஸ் என்ன, நியூஸ் அண்ட் பாலிட்டிக்ஸ் என்ன, உங்களோட ஒப்பீனியன் என்ன, ஏதாவது கருத்தில் கமெண்ட்ஸில் தெரியப்படுத்துங்க. ஐ வில் லுக் இன்டு இட். ஸோ தட்ஸ் இட் ஃப்ரம் டுடே ஃப்ரம் அவர் எண்ட். See you all. Take care. Peace.